one that threatens to sink his premiership. And then it happened, a moment so devastating, so humiliating, that it sent shockwaves through the political landscape. During a live television broadcast, an audience member stood up and delivered a scathing takedown of the prime minister. With brutal precision, they exposed Starmer's broken promises, his policy flip-flops, and his perceived betrayals. The studio fell silent. Starmer, visibly shaken, struggled to respond, his face drained of color. The host's attempt to intervene was useless. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Social media exploded. Millions watched, shared, and commented, their frustrations echoing across the country. But this was just the beginning. What happened next would push Starmer's leadership into complete freefall. The very next day, he walked into the House of Commons expecting applause for his diplomatic efforts in Ukraine. Instead, he faced something far worse, hostility from both opposition MPs and his own party members. His claims of leading a coalition for Ukraine were met with open disbelief. Then came the final blow. European leaders publicly contradicted him, dismantling his credibility in real time. The room was eerily quiet. Even Labour MPs, his supposed allies, refused to cheer. Starmer stood alone. And that wasn't the only diplomatic failure weighing him down. His much-touted Ukraine peace plan had collapsed. France, Germany, and Italy had distanced themselves from his proposals, leaving him politically stranded. Meanwhile, his attempts to secure a trade deal with the U.S. had backfired spectacularly. Despite Trump's superficial praise, Vice President J.D. Vance openly criticized the UK's policies, particularly on free speech. With each passing day, Starmer's credibility on the global stage crumbled further. But his troubles weren't just international. At home, his policies were sparking outrage. His stance on Palestinian refugees ignited fury, even among his own party members. Labour MPs accused him of betraying the party's core principles. Then he made another grave mistake. He publicly criticized a judge's ruling on Palestinian refugees. The backlash was immediate and severe. In a rare move, the Chief Justice rebuked him, a moment that sent shockwaves through legal and political circles alike. Even his most loyal supporters began to question his integrity. And just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, Britain's farmers declared war on his government. Angered by policies they saw as existential threats to their livelihoods, they began mobilizing. Mass protests were planned. Tractor convoys were set to storm London. The last time the UK saw something like this, the poll tax protests that helped bring down Margaret Thatcher. Panic spread through Labour's rural MPs. Some even considered resigning rather than defending policies that could devastate their communities. Meanwhile, something even more dangerous was brewing, a shift in voter sentiment that could change the UK's political landscape forever. Labour strongholds in the North and Midlands were crumbling. Polls showed unprecedented gains for Reform UK as lifelong Labour voters defected in droves. Their reasons: immigration, taxes, public services, all areas where they felt Starmer had failed them. With every passing day, Labour's grip on power weakened. The once unthinkable was now becoming reality. So what happens next? With crises erupting on all fronts, Starmer's premiership is in free fall. His inability to navigate both domestic and international challenges has left him politically isolated. The question is no longer if he will survive, but how long before his own party turns against him. The countdown has begun.
On behalf of His Majesty's Government and the United Kingdom, I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
And I will be taking a different approach to the last opposition by being a constructive opposition. And so I would like to start by congratulating President-elect Trump on his impressive victory this morning. The Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary met him in September. Did the Foreign Secretary take that opportunity to apologise for making derogatory and scatological references, including, and I quote, "Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, he is also a profound threat to the international order"? And if he did not apologise, will the Prime Minister do so now?
The relationship between our two nations has been one of collaboration, cooperation, and enduring partnership.
Well, that's quite the turnaround from this.
Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump.
Joining me now is GB News host Darren Grimes. Darren, good to see you. Thank you for joining me. It was as if Keir Starmer was being held at ransom to film his congratulation video. He wasn't invited to the inauguration, and there are reports that the Prime Minister will be at the back of the queue for a visit to the White House and will have to, quote, eat humble pie.
Much help. They can take care of themselves very well. You know what? No, it sounds like it's evasive, but it's not evasive.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did not distance himself from the remarks made by the Foreign Secretary, and I'm very sure that President Trump will soon be calling to thank him for sending all of those North London Labour activists to campaign for his opponent. Given that most of his cabinet signed a motion to ban President Trump from...
Keir Starmer has congratulated Donald Trump on his inauguration in a video message which lacked one thing.
Keir Starmer had invested weeks meticulously preparing for his high-profile visit to Washington, aiming to establish himself as a formidable global statesman. But instead of a triumphant diplomatic showcase, his trip quickly unraveled into an uncomfortable spectacle of public humiliation. The audience, composed of seasoned journalists and political analysts, swiftly turned against him. What was meant to be a demonstration of authority became an exposure of his vulnerabilities, as President Joe Biden effortlessly asserted dominance, leaving Starmer struggling to maintain composure. Every detail of the trip had been carefully orchestrated by Starmer's team, yet in the end, his presence was reduced to little more than his mannerisms, his forced smile and awkward chuckle betraying his discomfort. The Prime Minister understood the slight but lacked the confidence to counter it. For those familiar with Biden's playbook, the move was obvious. Psychological dominance masked as casual banter. Analysts quickly noted that this single moment would set the tone for their future interactions. Starmer had unknowingly stepped into Biden's arena and lost before realizing the rules. The humiliation deepened during a joint press conference when Starmer hesitated while addressing Biden's remarks on Canada. The U.S. president abruptly cut him off. "That's enough," Biden snapped, silencing the British Prime Minister as if he were an unprepared junior official in a high-stakes meeting. The room fell into stunned silence. Even Starmer's own team stood frozen in disbelief. Within minutes, clips of the moment flooded social media with captions like, "UK's new puppet master," and "Starmer put in his place." Then came the Ukraine discussion, Starmer's supposed opportunity to showcase strong leadership. He had pledged to send British troops as peacekeepers but failed to secure American guarantees. When pressed, Biden delivered a single offhanded remark. "You know, the British don't need much help." With those words, Biden signaled that the UK was on its own, leaving British families fearful that their loved ones could be deployed without US support. The implications were dire, and Starmer's lack of a firm response only deepened concerns about his leadership. Trade negotiations offered no relief. While European leaders like Emmanuel Macron managed to secure favorable concessions, Starmer walked away empty-handed. Biden, with a dismissive wave, quipped, "He tried. He was working hard." The press room erupted into laughter, cementing yet another moment of embarrassment for the British leader. As the disastrous trip concluded, Starmer's approval ratings, already sinking, took another hit. His attempt to project strength had instead amplified his weaknesses. Rather than bolstering Britain's global standing, he returned home with his credibility in tatters. The pressing question now looms: can Starmer recover from this catastrophic visit, or has his credibility been permanently shattered? What do you think? Can the Prime Minister bounce back from this disaster, or is this the beginning of the end? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth coverage of global political events. Breaking news: Keir Starmer's leadership in crisis. Keir Starmer has spent an astonishing 67% of his working days since October outside of the UK prioritizing his Ukraine peace efforts, while failing to address the rising crime wave in British cities. His neglect of domestic issues has led to mounting criticism, culminating in the shocking resignation of Foreign Aid Secretary Annalise Dodds, who stepped down in frustration. Her departure is only the beginning, with 6 more cabinet ministers reportedly preparing to resign amid growing discontent within the Labour Party. Starmer's leadership is unraveling. Allegations against the Prime Minister are set to surface, threatening to end his political career. Inside sources reveal that Dodd's resignation was far from quiet. Witnesses describe a heated exchange in which he erupted in anger, accusing Starmer of betraying Labour values. She was particularly incensed over last-minute foreign aid cuts, which she only learned about 24 hours before they were made public. Dodds, once a loyal ally, confronted Starmer over his secretive leadership style. She accused him of making decisions within a tight inner circle, excluding key cabinet members. In a moment of raw frustration, she reportedly told Starmer that his leadership had become fundamentally dishonest. What makes this fallout even more damning is that Dodds toned down her public resignation letter after intense pressure from party officials. The original draft was far more scathing, but labor leaders feared it would cause irreparable damage to Starmer's already fragile leadership. Labor insiders reveal that Starmer's government is in free fall. Ministers are growing increasingly frustrated as key policy meetings are delayed or canceled altogether. A major source of contention is Starmer's frequent international trips, which have left domestic issues largely unaddressed. Since October, Britain has seen a 27% rise in knife crime. NHS waiting lists increased by 200,000. A fresh surge in energy bills set to spike again in January. Yet, Starmer has spent more time with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky than with his own Home Secretary, who is responsible for tackling crime. One senior labor minister lamented, "We're developing policies that never get signed off because he's always on a plane somewhere." Labor's internal turmoil is reaching a breaking point. At least 6 more cabinet ministers are preparing to step down, citing broken promises and Starmer's failure to consult his own government before making key policy decisions. The biggest betrayal? Labor's election promises. A leaked document titled The Implementation Gap reveals that Starmer knew many of his manifesto pledges were undeliverable before the election. Instead of being transparent, he hid this information from his own ministers, leaving them to defend policies that were already doomed to fail. Among the 17 major manifesto commitments quietly abandoned or reversed are pledges on public spending, taxation, and economic reform, core promises that defined Labor's campaign. Ministers are now forced to defend decisions that contradict everything they promised voters, knowing that Starmer was aware of this discrepancy before the election. The backlash is undeniable. Labor's once commanding 20-point lead over the Conservatives has shrunk to just 8 points, a 60% drop in mere months. Starmer's approval rating has plummeted by 17 points, with 64% of voters now saying they don't trust him to keep his promises. Behind closed doors, senior labor figures are discussing plans to remove Starmer from power. A secret meeting of 12 high-ranking labor officials, including former shadow cabinet members, outline a strategy to challenge his leadership. The prospect of an open leadership contest is now more than speculation. It is a real possibility. With Starmer's credibility collapsing under the weight of his contradictions, Labor's internal battles are only just beginning. The British public, once hopeful for change, is losing faith. Starmer's government now faces a critical juncture. Will he salvage his leadership, or will he be forced out? The coming weeks will determine the future of Labour and Britain's political landscape. Stay tuned for updates. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay informed on this unfolding political drama.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have to say, as an elected representative of a very young political party, I watched this game going on between the two old parties and find it difficult to conclude that it's anything other than a complete and utter charade. And then we go on to the government, who tell us this has to be done because of legal uncertainty. But of course, there is no legal uncertainty whatsoever. And you know, you can shake your heads if you want, but you know I'm right. The ICJ has no jurisdiction over this whatsoever. So why are we doing it? Well, I guess, of course, post-colonial guilt, a government run by human rights lawyers. Beyond that, I really don't understand it. And the timing of this debate's perfect, because the Prime Minister is mid-Atlantic as we speak. Now, I have spoken in the course of the last week to American cabinet ministers. Chagos is not especially high on the American agenda at the moment. I would love to see the American administration veto this terrible deal. But I'm not even sure then that this government will move its position. They are clearly hell-bent on giving away the Chagos Islands, whatever the risks to global security, whatever the risks to our own budgetary constraints. If that's the case, I would rather see America have the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands than a corrupt Mauritius. Why don't we, if we're going to give this up, let's sell. Let's get a few billion quid for the Mauritius Islands, for the Chagos Islands. Mauritius has no legal basis, no legal claim, and you know what? Investment would come. The Chagosians could go back and get well-paid jobs. I want us to keep sovereignty, but if you're prepared to give away this country's interests, sell it to America, Don't give it away to corrupt Mauritius.
Nigel Farage never holds back, and this time was no different. Just ahead of the Prime Minister's crucial meeting with Donald Trump, Farage took the stage, eyes burning with intensity, ready to deliver a scathing speech that would shake the political landscape. The question is, was it a warning, a power play, or something much bigger? As the cameras rolled, Farage wasted no time in setting the tone. "We stand at a crossroads," he began, his voice firm, cutting through the murmurs of the gathered audience. "A moment that will define Britain's role on the world stage. And yet we are led by a government that dithers, that bows to globalist pressures, and that lacks the courage to stand firm in the interests of the British people." He paused for effect, scanning the crowd, letting the tension build. Then came the direct hit. "And now we send our Prime Minister to meet Donald Trump, a man who understands the meaning of strength, while we are represented by leaders who would rather apologize than stand tall." The words landed like a thunderclap, gasps, nods of approval. The room was split. Some clapped, others whispered furiously. But Farage wasn't done. He leaned in, voice lowering just enough to draw everyone closer. "Make no mistake, this meeting isn't just a diplomatic handshake. It's a test. A test of whether Britain can reclaim its backbone, or whether we will continue to be nothing more than a follower, a shadow of what we once were." He turned his attention to the key issues: trade, NATO, Brexit fallout. Trump is not a man who respects weakness. He deals in results, in strength. Do we honestly believe our government is prepared for that? He let the question linger, challenging the audience to answer for themselves. But then, a twist. Farage wasn't just attacking. He was setting the stage for a bigger message. This meeting is an opportunity, a chance for Britain to forge a real alliance, not as a subordinate, but as a partner. A chance to show the world that we dictate our own future. The energy in the room shifted. Some were nodding now, seeing the vision he was painting. Others still looked skeptical, waiting for the next move. And then it came. Farage's voice hardened. "But do we have the right leadership to seize this moment, or will we return home with vague promises, photo ops, and yet another round of excuses?" The audience stirred. He had them, and he knew it. "We can be strong, we can be independent, we can lead." He let the words sit, then added, "But only if we demand it." The speech ended, but the fire had only just begun. Within minutes, social media exploded. Farage demolishes weak UK leadership, calls for Britain to toughen up ahead of Trump meeting. The debate had begun, and the ripple effects were undeniable. Now the question remains, is Farage right? Is this meeting a turning point, or just another diplomatic dance with no real change? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more unfiltered truth on British politics, hit subscribe, because the fight for Britain's future is far from over.
Nigel Farage is at it again. This time, he's clashing with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer over Donald Trump's controversial plan for Ukraine. Farage is calling out the irony in the UK's foreign policy, while Starmer is pushing for continued military support. So, what's really going on? Let's break it down. Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, has never been one to shy away from bold opinions. And now, he's throwing his weight behind Donald Trump's vision for Ukraine. But what exactly is Trump's plan? According to reports, Trump aims to broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia with an economic agreement in the works. Farage sees this as a pragmatic approach, arguing that Ukraine has no choice but to negotiate. He believes that Zelensky's recent confrontation with Trump, where the Ukrainian leader allegedly warned U.S. politicians against pulling support, was a major diplomatic mistake. Farage, Zelensky's behavior was completely inappropriate. You don't go into the White House acting as if you're owed support. That's not diplomacy. But Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer isn't buying it. He's taking the opposite approach, warning that pulling military support would be a catastrophic mistake. In fact, he's working to build a European coalition to ensure Ukraine continues to receive weapons and financial aid. Starmer, we cannot abandon Ukraine. History has shown us that appeasement does not work. The UK and its allies must remain firm in our commitments. Farage's position has sparked massive political backlash. Some UK politicians, including Tory MPs and Liberal Democrats, are comparing him to Jeremy Corbyn, accusing him of being soft on Russia. Politician Nigel Farage's comments are dangerous. He's playing into the hands of Putin and undermining the UK's position on the world stage. But here's where Farage hits back with what he calls the irony. He points out that many of the same politicians attacking him once criticized Western policies that provoked Russia. Farage: "For years, I warned that NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe was giving Putin the perfect excuse to act, and now these same people who ignored those warnings are accusing me of being pro-Russian. The irony. So where does this leave the UK? Will Starmer's push for a European-led Ukraine coalition succeed, or will Farage's vision of a Trump-brokered peace deal take center stage? One thing is clear, this clash between Farage and Starmer highlights the deep divisions within UK politics over the war in Ukraine. As the 2025 elections approach, foreign policy will be a key battleground, and with Trump potentially returning to power, everything could change overnight. What do you think? Is Farage right to back Trump's approach, or should the UK stand firm with Starmer's coalition? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on global politics.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you. It may be a great irony that a Remainer Prime Minister used Brexit freedoms as effectively as he did yesterday. Indeed, as number 10 briefed. We are now in a unique position compared to the rest of Europe, and yesterday was a triumph. I also applaud him making such positive words about President Trump and our relationship with America, even if nobody behind him agrees. But here's the key. President Zelensky has now accepted that he's going to sign the minerals agreement with America. And America's going to put in $100 billion or whatever it is, and thousands of Americans will be in Ukraine. Is that of itself enough of a security guarantee? No. Or does it mean that we need to send British troops? And if we do, given the size of our army, how many?
The mineral deal is not enough on its own. But can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelensky is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
Joining us now is GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Good to see you, Mark. And should we start with Paris yesterday? Because Sir Keir Starmer would have been hoping to demonstrate a united front with Europe. It was anything but, really, with Olaf Scholz walking out early.
Listen, there's no way to sugarcoat this. This is deeply embarrassing for Sir Keir Starmer, who just a day earlier, of course, wrote and had various newspapers talking about his bold peace plan to put UK forces effectively into a very troubled, very dangerous area.
Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz just did the unthinkable. He walked out on UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the middle of a high-stakes diplomatic meeting. Yes, you heard that right. One moment it was politics as usual, and the next, boom, Scholz stood up and stormed out, leaving Starmer humiliated and the entire political world stunned. What could have triggered such a shocking move? What words were exchanged behind closed doors that led to this dramatic fallout? And more importantly, what does this mean for the UK's standing on the global stage? Stay tuned, because this political meltdown is about to get very, very interesting.
As part of any peace plan that would hopefully eventually be hatched out between the US, Russia and Ukraine. But he got short shrift, really, at that summit, with Germany and Poland saying absolutely not. This is premature and inappropriate to be talking about this. And you can understand why, because no one knows what the shape of any potential peace deal will be.
It all started when Keir Starmer and Olaf Scholz sat down for what was supposed to be a routine diplomatic discussion. On the surface, the meeting aimed to strengthen ties between the UK and Germany, focusing on trade, security, and international relations. But behind closed doors, tensions were already brewing. Sources close to the talks revealed that Scholz had deep concerns about Starmer's policies, particularly on economic strategy and foreign affairs. As Europe's largest economy, Germany has a vested interest in the UK's stability, and from Scholz's perspective, Starmer was not instilling confidence. Then came the breaking point. Starmer reportedly made a remark about rebuilding the UK's global influence, implying that previous governments had damaged international relationships. Scholz, however, wasn't having it. He abruptly interrupted, pushing back hard. What started as a policy debate quickly escalated into a heated exchange. At first, it was just diplomatic back and forth, two leaders challenging each other, but then Scholz dropped a bombshell. He directly confronted Starmer, stating that the UK's economy was weaker than ever and that his proposed policies were short-sighted, potentially damaging Europe. Caught off guard, Starmer tried to defend his stance, but Scholz was relentless. He pressed further, questioning whether Starmer had a tangible plan to fix the UK's financial instability or if he was merely making empty promises. Then came the moment that stunned everyone. Olaf Scholz, clearly frustrated, stood up, gathered his papers, and without a word, stormed out. The room fell into complete silence. Starmer, left sitting there, looked visibly shaken. Diplomatic teams scrambled to do damage control, but the fallout was immediate. Within minutes, the media caught wind of the dramatic exit, and the backlash was swift. Now the controversy is exploding. Political analysts are calling this one of the most humiliating moments in Starmer's career. Experts are questioning whether he possesses the leadership skills needed for international diplomacy, let alone running the UK effectively. Critics argue this isn't an isolated incident. From economic uncertainty to weak policies, Starmer has already faced mounting scrutiny, and now one of Europe's most powerful leaders has openly challenged his credibility on the world stage. Let's not forget, Britain's economy is already struggling, inflation remains a concern, businesses are anxious about Labour's policies, and now a key European leader has essentially signaled his lack of confidence in Starmer's vision for the UK. Even some of Starmer's own supporters are beginning to ask tough questions. Was this just a diplomatic misstep, or does it reveal a deeper issue with his leadership abilities? And here's where things get even more serious. International credibility is everything. If Starmer struggled in a simple diplomatic meeting, how will he handle real crises? What happens when the UK faces global tensions, economic downturns, or major policy negotiations? Germany plays a crucial role in global politics. If Olaf Scholz, one of Europe's most influential leaders, has lost patience with Starmer, who else might feel the same way? Are other world leaders beginning to see him as weak? And if so, what does that mean for the UK's future on the world stage? One thing is clear, this is not a good look for Starmer, and the political consequences could be devastating. But now we want to hear from you. Did Olaf Scholz just expose Keir Starmer as unfit to lead, or was this simply a diplomatic misstep? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more political updates from Britain Exposed.
Breaking news, a political earthquake is shaking the very foundation of UK democracy. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is at the center of a growing scandal that threatens to upend the government. What started as a minor electoral investigation has now spiraled into a full-blown crisis with allegations ranging from election. Could this be the beginning of a political downfall? Could the integrity of the UK's electoral system be compromised? Stay with us as we dive into the shocking details of this unfolding drama. Just a day ago, Greater Manchester Police announced a significant expansion of their investigation into Angela Rayner's involvement in what appears to be a deeply controversial manipulation of the electoral process. Initially, this was seen as a mere procedural issue, but as new details emerge, the implications are far more troubling. At the heart of the controversy is the delayed local elections in 9 council areas. While officially framed as a necessary administrative decision to allow for governance restructuring, critics argue that this was a calculated move to suppress opposition forces, particularly Reform UK. If true, this would mean that democracy itself is being tampered with. The big question is, did Angela Rayner deliberately delay these elections to weaken her political opponents? The timing of the delay has raised serious concerns. Many of the councils affected by this postponement were Conservative-controlled, with Reform UK gaining significant traction in those areas. Was this merely a coincidence? Or was it a strategic maneuver designed to maintain political dominance at a time when public dissatisfaction with mainstream parties is at an all-time high? Political analysts are already calling this one of the biggest electoral controversies in recent UK history. If these allegations hold weight, they could not only derail Angela Rayner's career, but also severely damage public trust in the entire political system. What does this mean for UK democracy? Is this a desperate attempt to hold on to power, or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think these delays were justified, or was this a blatant power play? As the legal battle intensifies, Angela Rayner has been forced to defend herself in Parliament where emotions ran high. Critics have accused her of using bureaucratic loopholes to manipulate election timings, while her supporters argue that the changes were necessary for governance efficiency. Meanwhile, Reform UK, led by figures like Nigel Farage, has wasted no time capitalizing on this controversy. They claim this is nothing short of an attack on democracy and are calling for the immediate reinstatement of the delayed elections. Public outrage is growing, and polls indicate a surge in support for Reform UK in key regions. If this momentum continues, it could signal a massive political shift in the next general elections. This scandal has ignited a crucial debate. Is the UK's electoral system truly fair, or is it being manipulated by those in power? And if these allegations turn out to be true, what consequences should Angela Rayner and the government face? We want to hear your opinions. Drop a comment below and let us know. Do you think this is political corruption at its worst? Or is this just another overblown controversy? And don't forget, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next explosive update on this developing story. More to come, stay tuned.
The end of the day, we do need to know. The government must be clear about where this money is coming from which budget. But on the fact that we don't even know the sums, this is taxpayers' money. How can any government justify these extraordinary sums? I will give way.
Thank you. What is agreed universally is that the cost is £9 billion. The government doesn't question that at all. Whether there's front-loading or not, we don't yet know. But assume that it's £90 million a year for 99 years. A lot of people in the media and in politics seem to have a problem with basic arithmetic and compounding. 90 million a year, index linked at 3%, is £52 billion. It is a completely eye-watering sum, and I'm very surprised that the opposition, His Majesty's loyal opposition, are not using that number, or perhaps they're just so embarrassed that they began the negotiations themselves. I don't know.
I think the bottom line to all of this is that there is no transparency from this government at all, and we will absolutely press the government and hold them to account on this.
It was a moment that had everyone talking. Nigel Farage, never shy of confrontation, took direct aim at Priti Patel with a brutal yet calculated jab. A fundamental problem with basic math, he quipped, setting the stage for an exchange that sent shockwaves through the room. But was it just political theater, or did Farage uncover something more serious? As the debate grew tense, Farage seized his opportunity. With a knowing smirk, he called out Patel on figures that didn't seem to add up. The crowd reacted, some laughing, others murmuring in disbelief. Patel attempted to counter, but Farage, armed with receipts and contradictions, kept pressing. The tension escalated as he dissected her immigration statistics, showing official reports that contradicted her claims. The audience felt the shift. Farage was in control. Patel pushed back, accusing him of grandstanding, but the damage was done. Then, the knockout line. If you can't get the numbers right, Priti, how can we trust you to run the country? A brief pause. The silence was deafening. Social media exploded. Farage dismantles Patel. Patel left speechless. The debate had become a defining moment, sparking endless discussions online. Was this a masterclass in debate, or just a well-played attack? But let's rewind and break this down further. How did Patel, once seen as a force in British politics, find herself in this situation? The answer lies in the numbers. Numbers that Farage was quick to highlight. Over the past year, reports indicated that net migration had soared far beyond government estimates, figures Patel had either downplayed or outright misrepresented. She spoke of tough new measures, but Farage was ready with receipts. Leaked documents, official records, and contradictory statements. Patel, usually confident in her delivery, began to waver. She insisted the government's plans were working, yet the statistics showed otherwise. Farage, a seasoned debater, pounced on the inconsistency. You say immigration is under control, but the numbers say different. Are you telling the public they should believe words over facts? The audience watched as Patel struggled to reframe the argument. The drama didn't stop there. As Patel tried to move past the issue, Farage shifted gears. And what about the economy, he asked. You claim these policies are benefiting Britain, but small businesses are crumbling under new regulations and people are struggling to make ends meet. Patel, for the first time in the debate, had no immediate response. This wasn't just a debate, it was a public dismantling of credibility. Patel's supporters watched in disbelief as Farage continued to apply pressure, refusing to let her off the hook. The debate soon moved beyond just numbers. It became about trust, about leadership, about who truly understood the struggles of the British people. And at that moment, Farage made it clear Patel was on shaky ground. Within hours, the media ran headlines dissecting the exchange. Analysts on talk shows debated Patel's performance, with some calling it a wake-up call for the government. Others defended her, arguing that Farage was simply playing to his audience. But regardless of where people stood, one thing was certain. This moment would not be forgotten. So what do you think? Did Farage expose a real issue, or was it just political theater? Can Patel recover from this, or has her credibility taken an irreversible hit? Let us know in the comments. And if you love a deep dive into British politics, hit subscribe, because if this debate proved anything, it's that the drama is far from over.
Breaking news. The BBC is under fire once again, this time accused of funding a terrorist. A Reform MP has come out blasting the incompetent BBC, exposing shocking details of how taxpayer money ended up in the hands of a dangerous individual. We've got all the details, and we're going to show you the full original video of this explosive speech. But first, Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss updates on major stories like this. The BBC, the UK's publicly funded broadcaster, is facing serious allegations after it was revealed that taxpayer money was given to an individual linked to terrorist activities. Reform MP has come out swinging, calling the BBC incompetent and demanding urgent accountability. This revelation has sparked outrage among the public, with many questioning how such a well-funded institution could make such a reckless mistake. Did you hear that? This is not just a minor mistake. This is a publicly funded institution, one that every taxpayer contributes to, accused of indirectly financing extremism. And the worst part? This isn't even the first time the BBC has faced such allegations. Time and time again, the BBC has been caught in scandal after scandal. Whether it's biased reporting, wasting taxpayer money, or now this, where does the accountability lie? How is it possible that a government-funded broadcaster can be this reckless with its finances? As expected, the backlash has been massive. Social media is flooded with furious reactions, with people calling for resignations, an official investigation, and even questioning whether the BBC should continue receiving public funds at all. Many are saying this should be the final straw, that enough is enough. The demand for answers is growing louder by the minute. Now, let's break down exactly how this happened. Reports indicate that funding was allocated through program or scheme, and somehow this individual managed to receive it. Did the BBC fail in its vetting process? Did they ignore warnings? Or was this just sheer incompetence? According to experts, this is a clear failure of oversight. A publicly funded broadcaster must have stricter checks in place to prevent incidents like this, yet time and time again, these failures keep happening. So what happens next? The Reform MP leading this charge is demanding answers. They are calling for a full investigation, tighter controls over public funds, and potentially even funding cuts to ensure something like this never happens again. But the big question remains: will the government take action, or will the BBC once again get away with another scandal? Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think the BBC should face consequences for this? Should taxpayer funding be cut? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we'll be following this story closely and keeping you updated. All right, as promised, here's the full original video of the Reform MP blasting the BBC. Watch for yourself and decide.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the BBC has got it badly wrong since October the 7th with its treatment and description of Hamas as a terrorist organisation. Once again, we're told that lessons will be learned. Does the Secretary of State think the BBC is incompetent, negligent, or just riddled with anti-Semitism?
I've been absolutely clear with this House that I think the BBC has serious questions to answer. The Director General was very clear with me earlier this week that they do have serious questions to answer, and they intend to answer them in full, and I will make sure that that is the case.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there is evidence of BBC funds reaching a prescribed terrorist organisation, will she join me in saying that there should be a full criminal investigation?
Look, ensuring that no money has fallen into the hands of Hamas is a duty of all of us. The last government was very clear about that in relation to the aid budget. We are very clear about that too, and the BBC needs to be as clear, or there must be consequences.
We'll know somebody at the moment who is trapped either in rented accommodation, or they're in, substandard accommodation, or they're in temporary accommodation, because we don't have the social housing we need in this country.
Well, yes, you say you want decent homes for everybody, but you're the one that decided that Labour Lords should vote against the government's nutrient neutrality plans, which they claim would have seen 100,000 new homes built.
To get round the table to make that happen, we put an amendment down which could have delivered on the programme. The government weren't listening. We don't believe that you have to wreck our...
Reina's political career is on the verge of collapse. Elon Musk has just unveiled information so explosive it could completely reshape the British political landscape. The Labour Party is now in full crisis mode, scrambling to manage the fallout, but the big question is, can they prevent the truth from getting out? Before we dive into the details, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. Have you hit that subscribe button? Great, thank you. Now, let's return to the story. Elon Musk's unexpected involvement in British politics has taken many by surprise. Known for his innovations in space exploration and electric vehicles, he seemed an unlikely figure to venture into the complex world of UK parliamentary affairs. However, It appears that Musk's frustration with political secrecy has been brewing for quite some time.
Tesla CEO, ex-owner, and SpaceX founder has his sights set across the pond on British politics.
Elon Musk's trolling knows no bounds and no borders. Lately, he's been turning his ire here at the Labour, the sort of centre-left government here in Britain, particularly its Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He wrote, "The people of Britain have had enough of a tyrannical police state." And you can see there, he was tweeting along with a survey, a petition that the government would be obliged to take up. Now that petition, which had 1 million signatories when Elon Musk retweeted that, it now has 2 million and climbing. So it looks like it's at least going to have to be maybe discussed.
It wasn't just a matter of British politics. This revelation had global implications. It all started with a series of cryptic tweets from Elon Musk, hinting at a bombshell that could shake the very foundations of UK politics. "Time to shine a light on the shadows," he wrote, followed by another ominous post, "The truth will set you free, but first, it will piss you off." These cryptic messages set the British media ablaze. Speculation ran rampant. What could the world's richest man possibly know behind the scenes? But Musk wasn't just stirring the pot. He had gathered a team of elite investigators to dig deep into Angela Rayna's past. This wasn't a whim or a publicity stunt. Musk was deadly serious. He believed he had uncovered a web of deceit surrounding the Labour politician, and he was determined to expose the truth. Rayna had long criticized the Conservative government for its mishandling of the economy, acknowledging the difficult future the Labour Party would inherit if they were to win the next election. "We won't be able to reverse everything the Conservatives have done over the last 13 years, she said, "but we will change Britain for the better." However, Musk's investigation uncovered something far more explosive than political rhetoric. It was a scandal that could reshape the entire political landscape. The Labour Party's response was swift and predictable. They launched a full-scale media offensive to discredit Musk, accusing him of being an out-of-touch billionaire meddling in matters beyond his understanding. "Mr. Musk should stick to building rockets and leave politics to the professionals," a Labour spokesperson snapped. But their attempts to suppress the investigation only fueled Musk's resolve. As the investigation deepened, Musk and his team faced mounting threats and intimidation. There were break-ins, mysterious phone calls, and even physical confrontations. But rather than backing down, Musk doubled down. With his security tightened, he made a defiant statement: "The more they try to silence us, the louder we'll speak." But the question on everyone's mind remained: why? What drove Elon Musk, a man with seemingly everything, to take on this fight? When the answer came, it was both surprising and deeply personal. In a rare moment of vulnerability during an interview, Musk revealed that his interest in Angela Rayna's case stemmed from a promise he had made to a close British friend, someone directly affected by what Musk called the rot in the system. "This isn't about left or right," Musk explained. "It's about right and wrong. When those in power abuse their authority, it affects real people, real lives. Someone has to stand up and say, enough." The stage was now set for a confrontation that would send shockwaves through British politics. Under the harsh glare of studio lights, Elon Musk and Angela Rayna faced off. Rayna, ever confident, wore her trademark smirk, ready to take on the tech billionaire turned political crusader. But Musk had an ace up his sleeve, and the nation was about to witness a moment that would redefine political. At first, the conversation seemed routine. Musk began with general questions about Rayna's background and political journey, to which she responded effortlessly, her answers polished and rehearsed. But as the minutes passed, the tone shifted. Musk's questions became sharper, more precise. He referenced obscure meetings, little-known connections, and financial transactions that made Rayna's composure falter. Just for a second, the studio audience, initially curious, leaned forward in anticipation. Something unexpected was unfolding. Rayna's responses grew shorter, more clipped. Her eyes darted off camera, searching for guidance that never came. Then, with the precision of a chess grandmaster, Musk struck. He pulled out a document, a bank statement. It revealed a direct link between Rayna and a series of offshore accounts. The implications were undeniable. For years, Reina had championed workers' rights and condemned tax avoidance. Yet here was proof she had secretly benefited from the very financial practices she publicly denounced. The effect was immediate and devastating. Reina's face drained of color as she realized the trap she had walked into. Gasps filled the studio as the camera zoomed in on the moment her carefully crafted political persona crumbled on live television. Musk, composed and methodical, laid out the evidence. "Miss Reina," he said, his voice steady, "how do you reconcile your public stance on tax justice with these hidden accounts in the Cayman Islands?" Silence. Reina's mouth opened, then closed, but no words came out. The once confident politician now seemed small and vulnerable under the relentless glare of the studio lights. Then chaos. The moderator struggled to maintain order as audience members erupted with questions and accusations. Reina's team rushed to her side, desperate to salvage the situation, but the damage was done. A political career built over decades had just collapsed in minutes on national television. The fallout, a political earthquake. The repercussions of Musk's revelation will be felt for years. The Labour Party, already under pressure, now faces an uphill battle to regain public trust. With their deputy leader exposed so dramatically, how can they continue to position themselves as champions of the working class? This scandal doesn't just threaten Reina's career, it could reshape the entire political landscape. Could it open the door for smaller parties or independents to gain ground? But perhaps the most pressing question is whether this will lead to real, lasting change. Will there be stricter financial disclosure requirements, more robust investigative journalism, or will the system, as it has so many times before, find a way to protect its own? Only time will tell if Musk's crusade for transparency will truly make a difference in British politics.